Hi there, welcome to Homekeepers. We have such an interesting guest today. Her name is Elizabeth Sanders, and she was formerly in a church called the Plain People or the Anabaptist, and we'll show you some of the, the way they really dress. They're wonderful people. Well, Elizabeth, welcome to Homekeepers. And boy, are you ever a homekeeper. You homeschool 4 boys?
I do, yes.
I think we have a picture of those boys, but maybe we also have some pictures of you, as I announced at the beginning of the show, from the Anabaptist, or they call it the Plain People. Now, were you born into that?
It was something that I chose by choice at the age of 16.
Oh, you did?
While I was raised in a home where we attended church and I was taught about God, it wasn't something until I was 16 that I started to pursue the Anabaptist ways.
And why was that?
I was really searching hard after God, to be honest with you. It was a time in my life that while God was always talked about in our home, I was starting to figure out where that personally met me. And I saw from their lifestyle that they had a very plain and simple kind of lifestyle. Their family, they have a very loving structure of family. And so those were things that I thought, well, they look like, they have that life that will portray godliness. And so that was what drove me.
And you were from 16 to what?
Until I was 24.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's show a picture. The first one will. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one I'm interested in, because your hair was down to your shoes, wasn't it?
In that picture it is, since I'm bending over, but it was actually partly down my thighs.
Yeah, you're cutting down a tree there. Okay, let's show one where you're just a little bit more. Oh, there's one of the family, those beautiful boys with your husband, and he's with us today. I'm glad to have him. And you also could train horses. Now this picture, that's more the kind of clothes you wore.
Correct, yes. So I had outfits such as that, where you saw the head covering that I sewed myself and would wear. And then I also had clothes that I would sew for myself as well. So that was my typical day of workwear. Whether I was in that picture training a horse and riding a horse, it didn't matter if I was downhill skiing, that's what I wore. Well,
it's interesting that you went into that at 16, and I understand that hard after God, that you would go there, and I'm sure it taught you a lot of valuable things.
Very much so. I basically learned that it wasn't so much about the things that I was wanting to do for God. I learned during that time of life, it was what He had done for me. And it took me searching deeper into that way of life to realize that I could do as many things for Him as I possibly wanted, but until I knew what He did for me, it didn't have an impact. Okay,
now, after you came out of that, you began to dress like you are today.
Yes, ma'am.
At what point did you meet your husband?
It was about a year later that I was able to talk with my husband. So we had met as teenagers, our families were estranged for 10 years, and then we reconnected when I was sharing my new life. And so his family was one that I was able to reconnect with, and that's how we are together today.
Yeah, was he in the Anabaptist church also?
He was not.
Okay.
He was raised, in a typical Christian family with a church that had, the basic styles, with just having a very structured life that was based around God and His love and grace.
So when you started dating, were you dressing like that, or like the picture?
It was a half and half mix.
Was it?
I was still wearing skirts that were down to my ankles, but I had switched out into buying my own shirts instead of making them.
And I would say the theologies are the same. The Anabaptists, they're evangelical.
They are very much the same at the base, yes. It's just the outward lifestyle that is different from us, but deep down the theological side of the teaching is very much the same.
Why the homeschooling?
Well, I was homeschooled myself during my schooling years, and my husband was homeschooled his entire life as well. So when it came time to start deciding what we were going to do with our own children, it became, number one, a natural choice for us. And with having a home-based business, it was one of those things that it worked very well into. I could work for 5 minutes here and there and be a mom, but I could also school my child, and be done by a certain point in the day to freely work with the soap business as well.
Okay, now, Did you grow up with goats, or at what point did you really get familiar and acquainted with goats? Most of us haven't done that, you know.
Yes, I lived the typical American life until I was 14, and then we moved to the country, and that's when we started to acquire our animals. So I had horses. My sister was the one who owned the goats. It was her interest initially, and then she would leave during the summertime and leave me to take care of her goats, so I got very familiar with them, and I realized we just had more milk than what we were able to use with making with cheese or anything else. So I started to study the soap making, and I learned about it for 4 months before I decided to just go for it and make a batch.
As I said at the top of the show, I understand there's a bit of a resurgence in people making soaps and scrubs and so forth. I mean, just ordinary people are getting interested in it. What was it that ever sent you the direction of soap? You said you did the cheese and everything else, but how did you know that that milk was really a good base for a good soap that's good for your skin?
It was something I had vaguely heard about. I had no instruction. It wasn't like I had a family member who made soap or anything. And so it was one of those things that I was raised in a home where we were encouraged to just follow different things that we were interested in. And so with that opportunity came, hey, if you're interested in making soap, get some books, learn about it. Like literally, go down to the library. Don't just go online. You know, it was the work behind it. And then once I saw just everything that was involved, I still wanted to give it a try. And so I made my first batch. And so now, 9 years later, we're still doing it.
Did that first batch come out good?
It did, actually. I was very surprised with the recipe that I tried. It was one that turned out immediately, and I had people asking to buy soap from the very first batch, and was asked also to demonstrate soap making within a week after I made my first batch. So immediately I went into selling it and teaching it, and that jump-started me into, oh, I need more soap.
So you've been doing this for 9 years?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, the name is Horseopeace. That's Horseopeace. Where'd that come from?
That came from my family farm that I was living on in Wisconsin at the time. So it was a name that meant it was a horse apiece into town. The town was not very far away, and so the farmers could literally ride a horse into town if they wanted to. It's just very close. And so our farm, we wanted to be a peaceful place as well. So then when I started the soap making business and my father had that name for our family farm, it was just the name that we were able to register with the business, and so that's where it came from.
I think I'm going to prophesy something here. It won't be long till these boys are really involved.
Yes.
I had another gal on who did this kind of thing several years ago, and I think they had 7 children, and boy, those kids were learning how to be entrepreneurs, and everybody was in the business, and it probably happened with those cute little boys you have.
They want to be involved in anything they see mommy and daddy doing. So that is definitely something, even now when we're packaging orders or whatnot, they want to hold a bar of soap in their hands and they want to work.
Yeah, which in itself is an intricate part of homeschooling. I don't think homeschooling's for everybody, but boy, there's a lot of good, excellent things about teaching your kids at home.
Yes.
And usually the kids turn out very smart, and they're usually ahead of their peers, you know, out of a public school system for sure. Your stuff's been written up kind of in the New York Times and the Miami Herald and all.
Yes.
All right, and then you have is this a face cream here?
Yes, this is a face cream that we have here. It's our own formulation. It took some shea butter, which some people are familiar with shea butter. It's very firm at room temperature, and it's very hard to spread into your skin. So we softened it up with a little bit of jojoba oil and some vitamin E, so it will naturally just draw moisture into your skin very quickly. It doesn't leave you oily the way a lotion would, but it leaves that moisturizing on your skin for hours afterwards.
What would surprise people? I mean, what do you put in there besides goat milk to make a bar of soap? What are some of the other ingredients? Because you're looking at somebody who's completely ignorant on this.
We disclose all of our ingredients on every label because we want people who are interested in our soaps to know exactly what goes on their skin. So in every bar of soap, we have our base oils of coconut oil, olive oil, and palm oil. And palm oil is very important that it needs to be sustainably farmed because a lot of palm trees are just being cut down right now. And so you need to make sure you have a sustainable source. But on top of that, you have the sodium hydroxide, and then you have the raw goat's milk. And so the raw goat's milk is responsible for all those vitamins and nutrients and minerals that will keep your skin healthy and regenerate your skin.
Feeds the skin, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Your husband is involved in the business as well, like the accounting end and the bookkeeping, I understand.
He's an IT executive right now at his current job, and so we're hoping that we'll be able to see him come home full-time with the soap business because we really need him. But it's interesting because with his talents, it's nothing that I had anything, of my own knowledge about. So I could make soap and I could throw a recipe together, but he's the one who took it and does all the other aspects that actually turn it into a business.
I want to get back to a little bit to your relationship with the Lord, because we live in a culture that's, it's so bad, and with people just mobbing everything. We've got a new president. A lot of people don't like him, and there's such chaos. And yet, a young girl like you, you've chosen, I want my family for here. We're going to, you got a farm and you're doing this business and all, but you have chosen that within all the chaos and God help us, bathrooms for boys, girls, and in between, and all the crazy stuff and the immorality that's going on. And somehow you've carved out a niche kind of safety for your boys.
It's a very interesting time raising children, I must say, just being able to shelter their hearts as long as we possibly can, but also be able to balance that teaching of what's going on in the world, because they need, at some point, they need to know, but they also need to have the stability of, in Christ, this doesn't have to be this way. In Christ, there's joy, and in Christ, there's hope, no matter what. And so that's something that we bring into our home life, whether it's our business or just interacting as a husband and wife. What our children see before us is definitely that it is in Christ where those things, they change. You don't have to look at it and see how awful those things might seem to you. You know that I have a different perspective. In Christ, this is my stability. This is where I find my identity. And outside of Christ, you don't have those things, and that's why the world is, in my opinion, very unstable.
I think your testimony is so great, because people really do get tied to the world and what's going on, and they get all upset. And I got to admit, it affects me because I'm a news junkie and all this. And then I read in the Bible, fear not, be anxious for nothing, and all that. If He can't keep you through this, and I think the important thing is for people like you, that you're raising children. These are little children that you're raising, but the Christ that you believe in will see them through.
He's unchanging. Yes, and one song that we like to sing with them when we're putting them to bed is, "This is the day the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it." And it's just
I'd love to see that.
It's adorable when the children sing.
So you sing a little bit before you put them to bed?
We do, yes. They like to join in. They're just learning how to be able to remember a phrase from a song, so yes.
Is this style of life something that you and your husband discussed before you got married?
I was coming out of the Anabaptist way of life within a year prior to when my husband and I got married. And so it was hard for me at first, because I have many family and friends that are still living that lifestyle, that I am able to keep in touch with them. But just knowing that it wasn't what God had for me, and to move forward with, my life has been so amazing since then, but it was because of going through those years that I realized where Christ was, and His position in my life. So it was very necessary for me to experience both that beforehand and the life that I now live.
Indeed. And I think that if more people thought those things through before they get married, I think we're so interested in our dress, when we're getting married, and the bridesmaids' colors and all, that maybe the vows come out of our mouth just by rote, and we don't really realize what we're saying. But I think your life is a beautiful example. And we do have young women watching this show, and they appreciate the encouragement that we give them, because the world doesn't give them any encouragement for the way they've chosen to live, and I'm sure the same with you. But how wonderful to be able to raise children in the fear and the admonition of the Lord. and to have a business. I mean, it's your whole life. It's just really a great example on so many levels. I'm glad the Lord sent you this way.
Thank you.
And I want you to stay with me because I have something, pardon me, to say before we say goodbye. But in the meantime, please remember these products we talked about. We've had the website up on the screen for quite a while. You can get the product through that.